The hall was full of cold light, shining on stone walls that felt more like a prison than a place of joy. The alien girl stood at the center, dressed in silver robes that looked beautiful but heavy. Her eyes were lowered, her hands shaking around her. The crowd cheered, but their voices felt empty. They were not celebrating her. They were celebrating control. Her name was Lyra, and from the day she was born, her fate had been decided. She was never asked what she wanted, never asked whom she loved. Today was the final step in that cruel path. Today she was bound into what her people called a sacred bond, but everyone knew the truth. It was hollow, cold, and lifeless. The elder raised his staff, his deep voice echoing through the hall.
Lyra, you now belong. Your heart is not yours.
Your choices are not yours, you are bound. The words cut her like a blade. Every syllable reminded her she was no longer free. Lyra lifted her eyes for a brief moment, searching for help, searching for anyone who would see her pain. But all she saw were blank faces, masks of tradition. No one cared if she suffered. To them, suffering was duty. The man chosen for her stood tall, armored and cruel. His eyes showed no kindness. He did not see her as a person, only as property. His hand gripped her wrist with strength. But there was no warmth, only force. The crowd clapped again, praising what they believed was honor. Inside her, a storm raged. She wanted to scream, to run, to fight, but she knew the punishment for disobedience. Many girls before her had tried, and their voices were silenced forever. Fear chained her more tightly than the ropes on her wrist. As the ritual continued, the air grew heavy. The hall smelled of smoke and old stone. The chants of the elders rose, speaking words that had no soul. Lyra's heart beat faster, not from joy but from despair. She felt like a bird with broken wings, forced into a cage she could never escape. Her mind screamed one question: is this all my life will ever be? She closed her eyes, and for a brief second she dreamed. She dreamed of a world where bonds were made of love, not chains, where someone looked at her with kindness, not control. She dreamed of laughter, of freedom, of a life that was hers. But when her eyes opened, reality returned like ice. The elder declared, "It is done, the hollow bond is sealed." The crowd bowed their heads in respect, but Lyra felt her heart sink deeper into the void. Then something strange happened. In the far corner of the hall, near the shadows, she saw movement. A figure was standing there, quiet, watching. He was not like the others. His face was different, his posture was different. His eyes were not cold, they were sharp, alive, and filled with something she had never seen before: compassion. It was a human. Humans were rare in her world. Some respected them, some feared them. Many called them dangerous because they refused to follow alien laws blindly. But at that moment, Lyra did not see danger. She saw hope. The human's eyes met hers. Just for a second, it was enough. In that silent glance, she felt a spark she had never known before. It was not ownership, not command, it was something real. Her hand trembled in her captor's grip. Her heart whispered, what if there is more? What if this is not the end? The ceremony ended and the crowd began to leave. But Lyra's mind was no longer empty. For the first time, a question replaced despair. Who is he? And why does he look at me as if I matter? The stone hall that once felt like her tomb now held a small secret. A hidden flame. The hollow bond was sealed by her people. But in her heart, something new had started. Something her masters would never understand. The crowd faded, the chants died. But Lyra's eyes kept searching for the figure. He was gone now, lost in the shadows. Yet she knew deep inside, this was not the last time she would see him. The hollow bond might have chained her, but destiny had just whispered another path, and it had the face of a human. The next morning, the city was alive with noise. Markets were crowded. Merchants shouted their prices, and guards walked with heavy steps to remind everyone of the rules. The air smelled of metal and dust, a mix of trade and control. Life moved on as if nothing had happened, but for Lyra, everything felt different. She walked quietly beside the armored man who now called himself her bond partner. His grip was strong, his steps heavy. He did not speak to her, he did not need to. His silence carried command. Lyra's eyes stayed low, her heart silent but deep inside. She remembered the figure she had seen in the shadows. The human rumors often traveled through the city like wind. Humans came from far stars. They were strong, stubborn, and impossible to tame. Some said humans were too emotional, too reckless. Others whispered that humans carried something dangerous in their hearts: freedom. That evening, As the suns began to set and the sky turned red and gold, Lyra was taken to the outer gardens of the council. Her bond partner left her there for a while, speaking with other warriors. She sat alone on the stone bench, her hands folded, her eyes drifting toward the tall walls where shadows stretched. And then she saw him again, the same figure from the ceremony. Standing near the edge of the courtyard, he was dressed simply, his clothes rough and dusty from travel. His eyes scanned the crowd but stopped when they found hers. The world around her seemed to fall quiet. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt her chest tighten not from fear but from curiosity. Why was he looking at her? Why did his gaze feel so different from everyone else's? He walked closer, slow and cautious, as if he knew every step was dangerous. The guards nearby were distracted, laughing at their own jokes. The human stopped just a few feet away. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "You don't want this bond, do you?" The words struck her like fire. No one had ever asked her what she wanted, no one dared, her lips parted, but no sound came. Her heart raced, afraid that someone might hear. How do you know?" she finally whispered back. Her voice trembled. "Because your eyes," he said softly. "They scream for freedom." Lyra felt a shiver run down her arms. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Her people only cared about obedience, but this stranger, this human, looked at her as if she was more than chains, more than a duty. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice no louder than a breath. "My name is Kale," he answered. "I came here for trade, but now I see something I cannot ignore." His jaw tightened. "I see you." She turned her head quickly, afraid the guards would notice, but they were still busy. She whispered, "You shouldn't speak to me if they find out. They will kill you." Kale's eyes did not move away. His voice carried a strange strength. "Let them try. I will not look away from what is wrong." Her throat tightened. The words were dangerous, but they stirred something inside her. Something she thought was gone. A small flicker of hope. Footsteps echoed suddenly. Her bond partner was returning. His shadow stretched across the courtyard. Lyra's breath caught in her chest. Panic rose. She looked at Kale, begging him silently to leave before he was seen. Kale understood. He stepped back into the shadows, disappearing just as the armored man appeared. The man's eyes narrowed, suspicious. "What are you doing here alone?" he demanded. Lyra lowered her head, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Just sitting," he grunted, grabbing her wrist again, pulling her to her feet. He did not notice the human who had just slipped away. He did not notice the spark that now burned faintly in her heart. That night when Lyra lay in the cold chamber that was now called her home, she could not sleep. The words echoed in her head. "I see you." Her people had forced her into a hollow bond. They had sealed her life into chains, but now, somewhere in the city, a human walked who dared to see her as something more, and deep inside she knew this was only the beginning. The nights in the alien city were long and heavy. 2 moons floated in the sky, their light falling over tall stone towers and narrow streets. Lyra sat in her chamber, a place that was supposed to be her home, but it felt like a prison. The walls were bare, the floor cold, and the silence pressed on her like chains. Her bond partner slept in another room. Not out of kindness, but out of pride. He saw her as property, a name to control, not a soul to share. Lyra lay on the edge of her bed, her hands clutching the thin blanket. Her chest rose and fell quickly, as if she was holding back a storm. Finally, the storm broke. Her tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. She buried her face in the blanket, whispering words no one was meant to hear. "I don't want this. I don't want to live like this. Please, someone. Please let me be free." Her voice was low, but the pain was sharp. Each word carried the weight of years of silence. Her people believed tears were weakness, but in that moment her tears were her only truth. Outside, the courtyard was quiet, but shadows moved. Kale had returned. The human had not been able to forget her face, the way her eyes screamed while her lips stayed silent. He walked carefully, keeping to the dark paths. His heart pounded, knowing that if the guards caught him, he would never leave alive. He reached the side of her chamber, where a narrow window was cut into the stone. He heard her voice, faint and broken, and his chest tightened. He leaned closer. His hand pressed against the wall. "Lyra," he whispered. His voice carried through the still night. She froze, her tears catching in her throat. Her eyes snapped to the window, wide and afraid. "Who's there?" "It's me," Kale whispered. "The human." Her breath trembled. She rushed to the window. her eyes searching the shadows until she saw his face. His presence sent a rush of warmth through her, and fear, too. "Why are you here?" "It's dangerous," she whispered sharply. "I heard you," Cale said, his voice low, steady. "I couldn't leave you alone in this." Her lips trembled. She shook her head. "You shouldn't risk your life for me." "You don't understand, this bond cannot be broken." Cale's eyes burned with quiet fire. "Every chain can be broken, Lyra." Her heart shook. The words sounded impossible, yet they felt real coming from him. No one had ever spoken like that before. No one had ever dared. "I am nothing," she whispered. "They made me nothing, just a bond, just a tool." Cale shook his head, his voice firm. "No, I see you. You are more than this bond. More than their rules, you are alive, and that means you matter." Her tears spilled again. But this time, they were not only from pain. They were from something else, hope, fragile and dangerous. She pressed her hand against the cold stone wall. Close to the window, Cale placed his hand on the other side, their palms almost touching. The stone separated them, but the moment felt real. For the first time in her life, Lyra's cry was not silent anymore. Someone had heard it, someone had answered. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the distance. Guards were making their rounds. Lyra panicked. "You have to go," she whispered quickly. "If they see you, they'll kill you." Cale hesitated, his jaw tight. "I'll go," he said. "But remember this, your life is not theirs to own." Then he vanished back into the shadows, silent and quick. Lyra stood frozen. Her chest rising and falling, the room was still the same. The chains of her bond still tight, but something inside her had shifted. The darkness did not feel so endless anymore. That night she lay awake, her hand pressed to the stone where his had been. Her heart whispered words she had never dared before. Maybe one day, I will be free. And in the distance, under the shadow of the twin moons, Cale walked alone, his mind filled with her face. He had seen suffering before, but never like hers. He knew then that he could not walk away. A silent cry had reached him, and it had become his own. The next day came with heavy clouds above the alien city. The air felt thick, as if the sky itself was warning that something dangerous was near. Lyra walked behind her bond partner as he moved through the crowded market. His hand clutched her wrist like iron, showing everyone that she belonged to him. Merchants shouted, selling bright fruits and glowing stones, but their voices faded in her ears. Her mind was somewhere else. Replaying the memory of the night before, Cale's words still echoed inside her chest. "Your life is not theirs to own." Her bond partner stopped to speak with another warrior. His grip loosened slightly. Lyra used the chance to glance around. Her heart skipped when she saw him again. Kyle. He stood across the market, dressed like a traveler, blending with traders. His eyes found hers quickly. The moment was short but powerful. He nodded once, as if telling her he was still there. Still watching, fear mixed with hope in her chest. She lowered her eyes quickly, pretending to study the ground, but inside, something burned stronger than before. Later, when the suns began to set and the market emptied, Kyle made his move. He slipped into a quiet alley where Lyra was left waiting, while her bond partner argued with a merchant. The walls around them were cracked stone. "The shadow's long, Lyra." His voice came softly. "Urgent." She turned, her breath catching. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice shaking. "If he sees you, I don't care," Kyle cut her words. His eyes burned. "You can't live like this. You deserve better." Her hands trembled. She stepped closer, her voice barely a breath. "You don't understand. To speak against the bond is death." "For you, for me," Cale leaned in, his voice low but steady. "Then let them threaten death." "I will not stop saying the truth." "You are not a possession, Lyra. You are not a chain. You are a soul. You deserve love, not this hollow prison." The words struck her like thunder. Her lips parted, her eyes wide. No one had ever said such things. The air around them seemed to grow heavier, as if the city itself listened. Tears filled her eyes. "Love?" She whispered the word fragile. "In my world, love is forbidden. Bonds are duty, not feeling. No one believes in such things, I believe," Cale said firmly. His voice was dangerous now, but full of fire. "And I think you do too." Her heart raced. She wanted to deny it, to hide behind fear, but the truth rose from deep inside her. Her lips trembled as she whispered back, I want love. "But it is not allowed." Cale stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "Then we will break what is not allowed." Her breath shook. The alley felt too small, too alive. She felt her heart beating so loudly she feared the whole city could hear. His words were dangerous, but they gave her something she had never known: courage. Before she could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed. Heavy, armored, sharp. Her bond partner's voice thundered from the market street. "Lyra! Where are you?" Her body froze, panic flashed in her eyes. Cale saw it. He grabbed her hand for the briefest moment. His grip warm, his voice fierce. "Remember this, even if they silence me. You are not hollow. You are alive, and you are worth more than their laws." Then he slipped back into the shadows, gone before the armored man turned the corner. Her bond partner's eyes narrowed as he grabbed her arm roughly. "What are you doing here alone?" She lowered her head quickly, hiding her tears. "I was waiting," she whispered. He growled, dragging her back toward the street, never knowing that the most dangerous words of her life had just been spoken. That night in her cold chamber, Lyra sat awake, her hands pressed against her chest. Her heart whispered the words again and again. "You deserve love, not this hollow prison." They were dangerous words, words that could kill her. But they were also the first words that made her feel alive. And deep inside she knew, once spoken, dangerous words could never be silenced. The days that followed were like walking on thin glass. Every step could break and cut deep. Lyra lived under the heavy shadow of her bond, forced to smile when the elders passed, forced to obey when her bond partner pulled her wrist like a rope. But inside she was no longer the same. Cale's words had become a fire in her chest. "You deserve love, not this hollow prison." They played again and again in her mind, sometimes giving her courage, sometimes filling her with fear. At night, she looked at the narrow window of her chamber, wondering if he was out there, watching. Her heart whispered for him even when her lips stayed quiet. One evening, the chance came again. Her bond partner was called to the council to speak of border disputes. He left her locked inside the courtyard garden, thinking she was safe. The walls were tall, but Cale found a way. He appeared from the shadows, moving fast, his clothes dusty from climbing stone. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, "The world stopped, Lyra," he whispered. His voice steady but urgent. She rushed toward him, her steps light, her breath shaking. "You shouldn't be here," she said, though her eyes betrayed relief. "If they find us, I don't care," Cale said, his voice sharp. "I will risk everything to see you." Her heart thumped loudly. She looked at him, her lips trembling. "Why? Why risk death for me?" Cale stepped closer, the fire in his eyes unbroken. "Because you are not nothing. You are not property. And because I cannot stand the thought of you living in chains." Her tears threatened again, but this time they were different, softer. She lowered her head, whispering, "If they find out, they will kill us both." "Then let them try," Kyle said. His voice was iron. "Some things are worth dying for." She lifted her eyes. Searching his face, every word felt like a spark inside her. "Dangerous but alive," she whispered back. "I don't want you to die, Cale." His hand reached forward slowly, hesitating before touching hers. Their fingers brushed, warm against cold. It was the first time someone had touched her, not with force, not with control, but with care. Her chest tightened. Her body shook. It was dangerous, but it was real. The garden was quiet except for the sound of her racing heartbeat. For a moment, the world outside did not exist. There was no council, no bond, no chains, only two souls meeting where no one could see. But danger always found them. The sound of laughter echoed near the walls. Two guards passed by, their voices loud. Cale pulled his hand back quickly, his eyes alert. Lyra's breath caught in her chest. Fear rushed in again. She whispered, "Go, before they see, please." Cale shook his head, his jaw tight. "I will go," he said, "but listen to me, Lyra. We cannot hide forever. If we are caught, they will destroy us, but if we act, if we choose, maybe we can break this bond." Her lips parted, her eyes wide. "Break it?" She repeated, "That's impossible." "Nothing is impossible," Cale answered firmly. His eyes burned with determination. "They call me reckless, dangerous, stubborn. Maybe I am, but I will not watch you die alive." Her tears spilled. She wanted to believe him, but fear clung to her like chains. Still, deep inside, hope whispered louder. "I will try," she whispered, her voice shaking but real. "But Cale, if they hurt you because of me, then I'll know it was for the right reason," he said softly. The guard's footsteps grew closer. Cale slipped back into the shadows. Gone like smoke. Lyra stood frozen, her hands pressed against her chest, Her body trembled, but her soul burned brighter. That night she could not sleep. She lay awake, hearing the words again. We cannot hide forever. The risk of love was now alive between them. It was dangerous, deadly even, but it was also the first thing that made her life feel worth living. And as the moons rose high in the dark sky, Lyra whispered into the silence, I am ready. What she did not know was that someone else had seen her in the garden. Someone who carried envy in his heart and poison on his tongue. Someone ready to speak against her. The risk of love had begun, and it was already drawing enemies closer. The council chamber was filled with cold firelight. Tall torches burned against the stone walls, and shadows danced across the faces of the elders. Their eyes were sharp, their mouths set in lines of judgment. At the center of the room stood Kale, the human, his hands bound with iron cuffs that dug into his wrists. The guards had dragged him through the streets at dawn. His crime was clear in their voices. He broke sacred law. He touched what was not his. He poisoned the bond crowds had gathered. Whispering, some spat in anger, others watched in silence. But all eyes were on the human who dared to defy. Lyra was brought in soon after. Her steps were weak, her body trembling. She wore the silver robes of her bond, but her eyes betrayed her fear. She wanted to scream, to beg, to fight, but the guards forced her to kneel at the side. The elder's voice rang out heavy as stone. This human stands accused of breaking sacred tradition. He dared to speak of love. He dared to defy the bond. What say you all? A chorus of voices answered. Guilty. Kale lifted his head, his jaw tight. His eyes burned not with fear but with fire. Your bond is hollow, he said, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. It is not sacred, it is slavery, you call it honor. But it is chains. Gasps filled the room. The elders slammed their staffs on the stone floor. Silence, one shouted. You will not speak against us. But Kale did not bow. His voice grew louder. I will not be silent. I saw her pain. I saw her tears. You call this strength, but it is cruelty, and I will not pretend it is right. The chamber roared with outrage. The crowd outside shouted for punishment. The guards stepped forward, ready to strike him down, and then something unexpected happened. Lyra stood, her body shook, her voice cracked, but her words came out clear. Stop. All eyes turned to her. The elder narrowed his gaze. You will remain silent, girl. You are bound. Your voice belongs to your partner. But she did not kneel. Her tears fell, but her face held courage she had never known. No, she whispered louder this time. I am not just a bond. I am not just property. The chamber froze. The words were more dangerous than any weapon. For a moment, silence spread like fire. Kale's eyes met hers, and he saw it. The courage he had been fighting for. Alive inside her, I choose, she said, her voice trembling but strong. I choose to stand with him, not with your laws. Not with your chains. The crowd erupted in chaos. Some shouted in rage, others gasped in disbelief. Guards stepped forward, but the elder raised his staff. Stopping them, his face was twisted with fury. You dare defy the council? Yes, Lyra answered, her voice clear now. I would rather die free than live in a hollow bond. Her words struck like thunder. The chamber shook with the force of her defiance. The elders shouted, the guards prepared their blades. But something had already changed. The people in the crowd no longer looked the same, some whispered. She is right. Others turned their eyes away. Afraid but shaken, the elder raised his staff high. Then you will both be punished, the human will be executed, and you will be stripped of honor forever. Kale pulled against his chains, his voice fierce. Then do it, but know this, you cannot kill truth. You cannot chain love. The guards moved forward, lifting their weapons. Lyra's heart pounded, her breath sharp. She thought of her life, of all the years of silence, of the hollow days, and then she thought of Kyle, of his fire, of his words, of his courage. For the first time, she felt alive even as the blades rose, but then something unexpected shifted. A voice from the crowd shouted, She is right. The bond is hollow. Another voice followed, then another, soon. Murmurs spread like storm winds. The elders' control wavered. The council chamber, once unshakable, trembled under the weight of defiance. Kale looked at Lyra, his eyes burning with pride. She had spoken. She had broken the silence, whatever happened next. The chains of fear had cracked. The trial was not just his anymore. It was theirs. It was the trial of defiance, and it had already begun to change everything. The council chamber was still roaring with chaos. Guards shouted, elders struck their staffs on the stone floor, and the crowd outside cried out in anger and fear. Yet through the storm of noise, two voices had already broken the world's silence, Kale and Lyra. The human stood tall, his chains cutting into his skin. His body was bruised, but his eyes blazed with fire. Beside him, Lyra stood trembling, but her voice still echoed in the air. I would rather die free than live in a hollow bond. The elders tried to regain control. Seize them both. End this madness before it spreads. The guards surged forward, but something had changed. The crowd did not move in unison anymore. Whispers rose, stronger than before. She is right. The bond is not love, it is slavery. Others shouted back, silence. She is cursed. But the split was real. The people had seen courage. And courage is more dangerous than any blade. Kale's voice thundered through the chamber. You fear us because we speak truth. You fear her because she has chosen for herself. You call this crime. But it is freedom. The head elder's face twisted with rage. His voice cracked like thunder. There is no freedom here, only duty. Lyra's eyes locked on his, her tears shining in the firelight. Then your duty is hollow, she said, and I will no longer bow to it. The silence that followed was sharp as a blade. For the first time, the elder hesitated, his staff lowered. His command weakened, and in that moment something happened that no one could stop. The chains on Kale's wrists clattered as two guards, young, uncertain, stepped forward and unfastened them. Their hands shook, but their eyes carried the same fire they had seen in Lyra's. They whispered, "Go before it is too late." Kale stared at them, surprised, but he wasted no time. He caught Lyra's hand in his. Her fingers trembled, but she did not pull away. Together they ran, pushing through the chamber doors. The crowd parted in shock. Some tried to stop them, but others, moved by defiance, stood in the way of the guards, blocking their path. The city outside was alive with torches and shouts. Alarms rang as the two moons cast silver light over the streets. Kyle and Lyra ran through narrow alleys, their breath sharp, their hands never separating. Behind them, armored feet pounded, but ahead the path was open. They reached the outer gates, massive and cold. The guards there crossed their spears, blocking the way. Kale's chest heaved, his mind racing. But before fear could take him, Lyra stepped forward. Her voice rang out clear, stronger than ever. We are not slaves of your law. We are not bound by your hollow chains. Open these gates or face the truth you fear. The guards hesitated, their spears wavered for a heartbeat. The entire city seemed to hold its breath, and then one guard stepped back. Lowering his weapon, another followed. The gates creaked as they began to open. Kale pulled her close, his voice low. We're not safe yet. But this is the beginning. Lyra looked at him, her eyes wet with tears but shining with light. You gave me courage, Kale. You gave me what they said was impossible. Love. He shook his head softly, his hand pressing against hers. No, Lyra, you gave it to yourself. I only reminded you it was yours to claim. The gates opened wide, and together they stepped beyond the walls. The night wind rushed against their faces, free and sharp. Behind them, the city roared with chaos. Elders shouting, guards divided, people whispering of freedom. The world they had left behind was crumbling. But ahead lay something new, something uncertain. It was dangerous. It was fragile, but it was real. As they walked into the unknown, their hands still locked, Lyra whispered, the bond they gave me was hollow, but this is real. Kale smiled faintly, his voice steady. Yes, this is the real bond. The stars stretched wide above them, endless and alive, and under that vast sky, two souls who defied chains began their story. A story not of duty or slavery, but of choice, of courage, of love. The real bond had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again.